Hello and welcome to PropNex, the property podcast about all things related to the future of real estate. I'm delighted that you've joined me today. My name is Gavin Morgan, your host. If you'd like to know a little bit more about me, please check out www.propnex.com. That's propnx.com. Or drop me a line if you'd like to chat privately on gavinrmorgan@propnex.com. That's GAVINRMORGAN @propnex.com. Bob Caboto, welcome to the PropNex podcast, and thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to a lively discussion.
Indeed. And Bob, just to that end, maybe if you don't mind, could you kind of take us just a little bit of an introduction about yourself, your career and business before we crack on to the topic for today, please?
Well, for better or worse, I have an accounting degree from the prestigious Accounting Institute of the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. I'm originally from Chicago and still live in Chicago. I started my career with Arthur Andersen in auditing and consulting for primarily real estate businesses. I'm a CPA. I'm a licensed real estate broker in the state of Illinois. I have my Series 7 and 63, but spent 7 years with Arthur Andersen in auditing and real estate consulting. Then I moved on to Merrill Lynch Realty, based out of Chicago and New York, which was real estate investment banking and included a lot of mortgage work for about 9 years. And then after that, I was the chief financial officer of a very, very large family office with a lot of real estate in Chicago for 5 years. After that, I started an executive recruiting firm in Chicago, 2024 Site Executive Search, in 1996, 97, and which has grown to be the largest retained or real estate recruiter in the United States. We have 11 offices. Right now, we're running at around 55 people, and I do not operate the firm. I have a chief operating officer that does that. I still recruit. I still executive coach individually. I still do what's called executive marketing and job placement. So my career is steeped in real estate, and from accounting, finance, investment banking, being a CFO, and being a recruiter and executive career coach.
Bob, that is incredibly interesting. I mean, I've enjoyed getting to know you over a good 7 or 8 months now, but I had no idea you had a background with that dynamic. I mean, congratulations on that, and it's so impressive. A little extra question from me then before we kick into the topic. So why did you choose the slot that you're focusing on now?
Well, it's, the metamorphosis of my career has been with large institutional companies, including the family office environment, which was rather institutional. I wanted to start my own firm for a number of reasons. I wanted independence. I wanted flexibility. And I wanted to do something that I was good at and leverage that talent into coaching and executive search and evaluation of executives for my clients into my own business, where I had a lot more control, both of my professional life and my personal life. And I can't say that starting in executive search was my passion.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't say I started in executive search and executive coaching because I was good at it.
Yeah.
And then after about 5 years, it became my passion for a couple of reasons. I was helping people. It fulfilled my need to help people, and it was lucrative. So, when I think of when people say, I want to do what in their careers, what I'm passionate about, I tell them, I think what you want to do in your career is what you're good at first. And then you can be passionate about it as you perfect your skills and become more successful in that career. So I'm not a proponent of, and I tell young people this, I want to do what I'm passionate about. Well, you may not know what you're passionate about at your age, but I know one thing, do something you're good at, and it may take time for you to find that, what you're good at, and then you become passionate about it because you're good at it. So
Okay.
anyway.
Particularly big corporations in real estate, they occasionally onboard new leadership, and that often brings big new strategic decisions or new strategic direction that tend to take those organizations off on a fundamentally course changing path behind the strategy of that individual or that group of individuals. In my experience, one thing that I've seen is these organizations making these big bets, but then they retool the existing team internally, which isn't skilled or experienced in the right way to take the firm properly down the path to deliver on those bets. How are you seeing the people side of the industry reacting to that? Are you? Do you think it's reacting quickly enough? Do you think we'll see a lot of change in the future against that space?
Well, what I see in the talent market now, and particularly while the real estate market, both the market itself and the real estate market, talent market, is starting to cool off a little bit, is we have a number of clients where we're looking for asset managers, CFOs, COOs, and we have a couple of CEO searches that the main theme seems to be strategy. And to sharpen one's strategy skills, they have to know their particular silo, whether it be asset management, whether it be CFO, whether it be just straight financing or operations. Not only do they have to have the skills to do their job, but they have to have the strategic knowledge of knowing the marketplace and knowing how that affects their particular silo and other silos. Where I see people where they're being considered for a very C-level position in an organization, where a lot of them forget about staying up to date about what's really happening in the marketplace and why. So the keys is can you do the job? Can you asset manage? Can you do operation? But do you know enough about the entire market, your competitors, and the company's strategy to give advice on what the company should do next, or if they should pivot off its strategy or pivot to a strategy? So I view, a person as having, like three different skill sets. Number one, the skill set to do the job. Number two, the strategic thinking of what's going on in the overall market and how that applies to the company they're working for. And number three is having the cultural fit with the company, which is of critical importance to fit into the personality of the company. what do I mean by the personality of the company? Typically, the CEO sets the personality of a company, and whether it's a strong CEO or a weak CEO, the company sooner or later reflects the personality of that CEO, of the leader. And I tell our candidates when they're vying for a job that we have is, does your personality, do your thoughts more or less agree with the CEO's thoughts? Not that you're 100% lockstep strategically or personality wise with the CEO, but they have to be close to what they are. So, when I look at executive hiring right now, it's those three pillars that really make the decision. But I see, in the last 6 months to a year, a lot of people are looking for, I know they can be a CFO, but can they help me strategically to make sure we're going down the right path?
Are you seeing any evidence in real estate organizations that they're thinking more broadly in terms of skill set as they put together their C-suite or their board or their management structure to give them a better ability to ensure that sustainability, technology, etc., are properly interwoven in amongst strategies moving forward to help them succeed?
Well, I look at sustainability and diversity as, it's a cliche, as a paradigm shift in our industry, in that real estate people are slowly moving to sustainability issues in our environment, obviously, and also in diversity. The movement is slow now for the major institutional clients that we have. That shift is very quick. And in our privately held companies, the shift is slower, but now is gaining a lot of traction. So regarding sustainability is, 5 years ago, we heard about it with our larger institutional public companies. And it was unheard of with smaller to mid-size to larger private companies. And all of this, sustainability is a slow cultural shift to that has gotten a lot of traction, since COVID hit, since the market has improved, but now slowed down a little bit. So, the sustainability issue is, I know that private companies have lagged in moving towards that, but I see a lot of momentum in that area with private companies. Publicly held companies, it started 5 years ago, and they have quickly moved to that.
Yeah. I mean, the other big trend, Bob, that I think really impacts people is the hybrid workplace. Lots of debate over the last couple of years on this. I think organizations and leadership in organizations concerned about lack of people in the workplace. I mean, the wanting people to bond and get to know one another and form teams and leverage those relationships to the good of the firm. And then more recently, a lot of leadership in organizations talking about leverage coming back to the employer in terms of being able to attract people back to the workplace. Now, I don't think that type of language will last long because the war for talent, I mean, yes, things are a little lighter at the moment, but attracting and retaining the best talent has always got to be a priority for an organization that wants to grow and move forward. And my view, particularly in a country like the United States, with the way people live here, hybrid is going to be the way that people will want to work moving forward. Not 5 days at home, in my view, but probably more something like maybe Monday, Friday at home, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the office, something like that. Are you seeing organizations that you're working with being thoughtful about that and trying to project themselves thoughtfully to employees in that way yet? Or do you disagree with my thinking? Or do you think this will come down the track? Or where do you think we're at with that at the moment?
Well, I think real estate industry has been slow to move, and in many cases, reluctant to go, will not go fully hybrid. Now, what we see is, and what's going on regarding the hybrid model is this: at the C-suite or senior executive, what we see is 4 to 5 days a week for the C-suite, and with really it being 5 days a week. Although companies are private sector companies and even public sector companies will go with 4 and 5 days a week during crunch periods. Now, for mid-level executives, it really varies. We've done statistically a report where 60% of mid-level are 4 to 5 days a week in real estate. The other 40% are 3 day a week hybrid, three at home, two in the office, Monday, Friday schedule. Now, for entry level or junior level, is we see the 3 day a week in the office. Real estate is can be a very collaborative and has to be a collaborative endeavor. And a lot of real estate executives think it just simply can't be done over video. Now, whether that they're talking about collaboration, or when I read that a lot of large public companies and some privates say, I want all my people in the office 4 to 5 days a week. It could be a mix of collaboration, but it also could be a mix of productivity. And this is somewhat of a sensitive subject in that I think some people are just geared towards, they can get all their work done totally hybrid, totally working out of their home office. And there are some people who need the structure to go into the office to make sure they're productive. So I think that'll evolve, but I definitely think the hybrid model is here to stay for mid-level executives to junior people at a firm. I do not see, I see for senior executives, I don't see it going 3 days a week. I see a 4 or 5 day a week for senior executives. And it'll shake out during the next 2 to 3 years for sure. But companies wanting all their people back in the office, it's a mix between collaboration and it's also productivity, because companies see that I don't think these certain employees are as productive as they once were when they were in the office.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Also, yeah, the final factor is, and I've heard this, to develop as a professional and to learn the skills, not only the skills in your job, but the cultural skills of a company can't be done remote. And I do agree with that. If someone is learning their trade in their 20s and mid 30s, remote is not as good as being in the office collaborating with your colleagues.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that. And I also agree that It's complicated for organizations and particularly HR departments because the right solution is probably a little different for almost every individual, depending on how you motivate yourself. Um, so, Bob, that's been a really tremendously interesting conversation. Thank you on a bunch of different topics. But before we wrap up for today, I wanted to ask you if you had any big predictions or high impact predictions that you'd like to make that you think we might see happen in the next 3 years.
Well, I think real estate will have, other than office, will have a soft landing. Um, the market for real estate and the market for real estate talent during from I want to say from May 2020, which was the middle of COVID, to probably of November 2022 was the hottest real estate market talent I've ever seen in my 27 year career in recruiting. And there'll be a soft landing, I believe, in real estate, except for office. Our business has decreased by 10%, but not dramatically, and I still see strength, surprising strength in certain asset classes: industrial, self-storage, healthcare, senior living, and multifamily is slowing up a little bit, but not a lot. Now, what I see 3 years from now is executives have to maintain their skills, but also their skills in software as a service. Now, what do I mean by that? Is whereas 10 years ago, we would not ask, well, what kinds of software are you familiar with? And we had executives say, well, I'm not familiar with that because I don't want to be in some cases. And in a lot of executive ranks now is, are you familiar with Yardi, MRI, JD Edwards, a customer relation management system, Salesforce, and the rest of them? Are you adept at other software so that you can do your job at a high level? People who, there was a trick question we used to ask executives years ago in an investment position or or for a CFO, which was, we've got all these projections on this, portfolio analysis, but your analyst has been sick the last 10 days. But there's some errors in the spreadsheet. Can you go in and fix those errors so that you can still make that presentation to the board on Friday? And the executives who answered, no, I can't, were at a disadvantage. Now, that type of hypothetical question, if not answered in the affirmative, could be a reason not to hire someone. So I view, skills in your particular silo, whether it be asset management, finance, CFO, COO, strategy, but culture, but also knowing the software that is associated with that particular silo and being able to leverage that to make better decisions, to be better organized, and to do your job better is of critical importance.
Well, I think the real estate soft landing projection bulb will be music to many people's ears, particularly at this current time. And I'm sure, hopefully you'll be quoted on this and applauded in 2 or 3 months after we get through what's happening right now. But look, for now, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us on PropNext. This has been a really fantastic conversation. I'm sure everyone listening will enjoy this and the various different things that we've talked about here. And thank you again for your time.
Gavin, I enjoyed myself too. You have a great podcast and a platform here, and keep it going.
Thank you very much. Bob Cavoto. So that's a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank you very much for tuning in to listen today and hope to welcome you back to hear some of our future shows. As I mentioned earlier, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about me, look at www.propnext.com. That's PROPNX.com. Or drop me a line on gavinrmorgan@propnext.com. That's GAVINRMORGAN@propnext.com. I hope to hear from you soon, and thank you very much again for tuning in today. All the very best.